The holographic principle. You aren't real. At least, not in the way you think. The coffee cup in your hand, the screen you're staring at, the very structure of your bones and brain, they might all be a fantastically complex projection. This is the core, brain-breaking idea behind the holographic principle, a concept born from the arcane world of black hole physics and string theory. It suggests that all the information contained within a three-dimensional volume of space can be described by the physics happening on its two-dimensional boundary. Think of it like a credit card security hologram. The image appears three-dimensional, with depth and form, but all the information required to create that illusion is encoded on a flat 2D film. Now, scale that up to the size of the entire cosmos. The theory, first proposed by Gerard de Hooft and later refined by Leonard Susskind, posits that our seemingly 3D universe is a holographic projection of information stored on a distant cosmic surface, the edge of the observable universe. This isn't just a fun thought experiment. It emerged as a potential solution to Stephen Hawking's black hole information paradox. The paradox pointed out that when things fall into a black hole, their information seems to vanish forever, which violates the laws of quantum mechanics. The holographic principle suggests the information isn't lost at all, it gets smeared across the black hole's event horizon, a 2D surface. If a black hole can do it, why not the whole universe? This leads to a truly staggering implication. What we perceive as solid, tangible reality is fundamentally just information. But information doesn't just exist in a vacuum, it needs a medium, a processor. If our reality is a projection, what or who is the projector? This is where the idea pivots from mind-bending physics to a profound metaphysical question. Could the projector be a form of cosmic consciousness? If the universe is fundamentally information, then perhaps it's more like a thought than a thing. Our entire chaotic, beautiful, painful existence could be the product of a cosmic mind thinking itself into being, with the laws of physics being the grammar of its thoughts. So the next time you stub your toe, remember, the pain might just be a particularly convincing pixel in a grand, universal hologram. Panpsychism. That rock you kicked on the sidewalk yesterday, it might have felt it. Not in a, ouch, my rocky feelings kind of way, but in a primitive, rudimentary flicker of raw experience. This is the central claim of panpsychism, an ancient idea that is having a radical and surprisingly serious modern comeback. Panpsychism proposes that consciousness isn't a special, emergent property that magically appears when you arrange enough mindless matter in a complex pattern like a brain. Instead, it suggests that consciousness, or at least some primitive form of it, is a fundamental and ubiquitous property of the universe, just like mass, charge, or spin. From this perspective, every particle in existence possesses a tiny, irreducible spark of experience. An electron doesn't think about its spin, but it might have a minuscule, intrinsic feeling of what it is to be an electron. Philosophers like Philip Goff and neuroscientists like Christoph Koch are championing this view as a potential solution to the hard problem of consciousness, the mystery of why and how we have subjective first-person experiences at all. Physics is great at describing what matter does, but it says nothing about what matter is on the inside, how it feels to itself. Panpsychism fills this explanatory gap by saying that what matter is, intrinsically, is consciousness. More complex minds, like ours, arise not from creating consciousness out of nothing, but by combining these countless microscopic consciousnesses into a vast hierarchical structure. Your brain isn't a meat machine that somehow generates a ghost. It's a cosmic amplifier that takes the faint hum of universal proto-consciousness and organizes it into the symphony of thought, emotion, and self-awareness you experience. This completely flips our view of the cosmos. It implies we aren't lonely, thinking beings in a dead, unfeeling universe. We are simply the most complex local expressions of a universe that has been sentient in some form from the very beginning.
The cosmos isn't a place we live in. It's a mind we are part of. Biocentrism. The universe didn't create you. You, in a very real sense, created it. Before you dismiss this as the ultimate case of main character syndrome, consider the radical theory of biocentrism, championed by scientist Robert Lanza. It argues that biology isn't a footnote in the grand cosmic story, it's the author. The theory's core principle is that reality is a process that requires a conscious observer. The universe, with all its stars, galaxies, and physical laws, doesn't exist in any meaningful state until a living being is there to perceive it. Without consciousness, the cosmos is just an undefined, ghostly soup of quantum probabilities. This isn't just philosophical navel-gazing. It's rooted in the weirdness of quantum mechanics, most famously illustrated by the double-slit experiment. In that experiment, particles, like electrons, behave as a wave of all possible paths until they're measured, at which point they collapse into a single, definite particle in a single location. The act of observation seems to force reality to make a choice. Lanza takes this principle and applies it to everything. He argues that space and time are not hard external objects, but rather tools of the mind, the software our consciousness uses to assemble raw sensory information into a coherent story. You don't see the world as it is, you see the world as your mind constructs it. Without a biological observer, concepts like up, down, past, and future are meaningless. The Big Bang, from this perspective, didn't happen 13.8 billion years before life. It happened relative to the first conscious observer who could look back and measure it. Life doesn't just appear within the universe appears within life. This reframes our existence in the most profound way imaginable. We are not accidental tourists in a pre-existing cosmos. We are the active participants who collapse the quantum wave function of reality, turning a universe of pure potential into the one actual universe we experience. The cosmos isn't a dead stage on which life performs. It's a vast participatory event, and our consciousness is the key that unlocks its existence. Integrated information theory. What if we could measure consciousness, not just brain activity, but the actual subjective experience of being? What if we could assign a precise number to the richness of a system's awareness, a value called phi? This is the goal of integrated information theory, or IIT, a highly influential and mathematically dense theory developed by neuroscientist Giulio Tononi. IIT proposes a radical redefinition of consciousness. It's not about intelligence or behavior or self-awareness. At its core, consciousness is simply integrated information. A system is conscious to the degree that it is both highly differentiated, it contains a vast amount of information, and highly integrated. That information is woven together into a unified, irreducible whole. A system with a high phi value is one where the whole is truly more than the sum of its parts. You can't understand it by breaking it down. The theory provides a framework to calculate this phi value for any system. A human brain, with its trillions of interconnected synapses, would have an astronomically high phi. A digital camera sensor, which has many differentiated pixels, but no integration between them, has a phi of 0. It sees, but it doesn't experience. This is where it gets weird. IIT is substrate independent. It doesn't care if the system is made of neurons, silicon chips, or something else entirely. Anything with a non-zero phi has some degree of consciousness. This could include animals, the internet, a sufficiently complex thermostat, or even fundamental particle grids. Tononi's theory implies that consciousness isn't an all-or-nothing affair. It's a graded phenomenon that permeates the universe. It also suggests that a simulated brain, if it perfectly replicated the informational structure of a real brain, would be just as conscious as we are. The universe, from this perspective, is a vast landscape of systems with varying degrees of phi. We are just an island of extremely high phi in a sea of simpler, more rudimentary forms of experience. Consciousness isn't the exception. It's a fundamental property of networked information, and the universe is the ultimate network. Orchestrated objective reduction. deep within the microscopic scaffolding of your brain's neurons in structures called microtubules. A quantum symphony is playing out. And this symphony, according to the orchestrated objective reduction theory, is the source of your conscious mind. This highly controversial but endlessly fascinating theory was developed by physicist Sir Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff. They argue that the standard model of the brain as a classical computer made of meat is insufficient to explain the richness, subtlety, and non-algorithmic nature of human consciousness. Instead, they propose that our awareness is born from quantum processes that classical physics can't explain. The microtubules, tiny protein cylinders that form the cell's cytoskeleton, act as quantum computers. Information is encoded in their quantum states, allowing for vast parallel computations that dwarf the brain's synaptic connections. But this is only half the story. The objective reduction part of the name comes from Penrose's proposed solution to the quantum measurement problem. He suggests that quantum superpositions, a particle being in multiple states at once, don't collapse because of an observer, but because they become unstable and collapse on their own once they reach a certain mass-energy threshold. Each of these self-collapsing events, Penrose argues, is a moment of proto-consciousness. It's a fundamental blip of experience embedded in the geometry of space-time itself. The orchestrated part of the solar name comes when the brain comes in. The microtubules, through a biological process, are able to synchronize these quantum collapses, orchestrating the countless tiny flashes of proto-consciousness into a single unified stream of awareness. In this view, our brains don't create consciousness, they are quantum amplifiers that tap into a universal field of proto-conscious experience that has existed since the Big Bang. This elegantly bridges the gap between the physical brain and the subjective mind, suggesting our consciousness is both a product of our biology and a direct connection to the fundamental fabric of reality.
Simulation hypothesis. You've heard the basic premise. We're living in a hyper-realistic computer simulation, a cosmic version of The Sims. But let's push that idea one step further. Forget the silicon chips and lines of code. What if the computer running our reality is a mind? The simulation hypothesis, popularized by philosopher Nick Bostrom, argues that if a civilization becomes advanced enough to create ancestor simulations, they would likely create billions of them, meaning it's statistically far more likely we are one of the simulated beings than the original base reality beings. But let's reframe the programmer. Instead of a pimply teenager in a higher dimension, what if the simulator is a being of pure consciousness, a mind so vast and powerful that its thoughts become entire universes? In this version of the theory, the universe isn't a program, it's a dream in the mind of a cosmic dreamer. This idea isn't new, it's a technological update to the ancient philosophical concept of solipsism and the Hindu concept of Maya, the illusion of reality. If a sufficiently powerful consciousness could imagine a universe with its own consistent laws and inhabitants, where the beings inside that thought universe know they were just ideas. From our perspective, the laws of physics would be the unbreakable rules of the dream. Miracles might be the dreamer briefly bending its own rules. Glitches in the matrix, déjà vu, Mandela effect, bizarre coincidences could be moments when the dreamer's focus wavers, like a continuity error in a film. This framework makes the creator of our universe not a detached engineer, but an immanent, thinking being. The universe wouldn't just be created by a mind, it would be made of mind stuff. This would explain the so-called fine-tuning of the universe, the fact that physical constants are so perfectly set for life to exist. They weren't set by chance, they were chosen by the dreamer to make the dream interesting. We are the characters in a cosmic story, and the author is the very medium in which we exist. Global Consciousness Project. On September 11, 2001, as the world watched in horror, something strange was happening in a network of laboratories around the globe. A collection of random number generators, machines designed to be the very definition of unpredictable, spitting out zeros and ones with no pattern, suddenly became a little less random.
During the moments of most intense, focused global attention, their output showed a statistically significant deviation from chance. This is the most famous finding of the Global Consciousness Project, a long-running experiment based at Princeton University. For decades, the project has maintained a network of these generators, called eggs, in dozens of countries, continuously collecting data. The core hypothesis is that when millions of human minds are focused on the same major global event, be it a tragedy like 9/11, a celebration like New Year's Eve, or a natural disaster, our collective consciousness creates a coherent field that can subtly influence the physical world. The project's data, accumulated over years, shows small but persistent correlations between moments of global emotional coherence and anomalies in the random data. Mainstream science remains deeply skeptical, pointing to potential methodological flaws and the file drawer effect, where only significant results get published. Yet, the results persist. If the effect is real, the implications are staggering. It suggests that consciousness is not confined to individual skulls. It's a field that can expand, interact, and exert a real measurable force on reality. Our minds, when linked by a shared experience, might form a temporary global mind, a planetary consciousness that thinks and feels as one. This isn't just a philosophical idea, it's a testable hypothesis. It implies that our inner worlds of thought and emotion are not isolated. They leak out, combining into a psychic atmosphere that surrounds the planet, a noosphere of shared awareness that can, just barely, nudge the gears of the physical machine. Morphic resonance. How does a spider know how to weave a web without being taught? How do crystals of a new chemical, once formed in one lab, seem to form more easily in labs all over the world afterward? Biologist Rupert Sheldrake proposes a radical answer: morphic resonance. This controversial theory suggests that nature has a form of inherent memory. It's not stored in genes or brains, but in invisible, non-local organizing fields called morphic fields. Every species, every chemical, every pattern of behavior has its own morphic field, shaped by the cumulative experience of every past member of that group. When a spider spins web, it's not just following genetic instinct, it's tapping into the collective web-spinning experience of all spiders that had ever lived through a process of morphic resonance. Sheldrake argues this explains countless biological puzzles, from the mysteries of instinct to phantom limb pain. He extends the idea to human society, suggesting that ideas, skills, and memories can also be transmitted through these fields. You might find it easier to learn a skill like snowboarding today than 100 years ago, not just because of better equipment, but because the snowboarding field is now stronger, reinforced by the millions who have learned before you. This is, in essence, a theory of a universal living memory. The universe doesn't just contain things, it remembers how to be those things. These fields act as blueprints, guiding the formation and behavior of everything from galaxies to human thoughts. This paints a picture of the cosmos not as a machine governed by timeless laws, but as an evolving organism that learns and develops habits. Consciousness, in this view, might be our species' way of tuning into these fields, both reading from and writing to the collective memory of humanity and the planet itself. The universe isn't just conscious now, it has a memory that stretches back to the beginning of time. Gaia hypothesis. The Earth is alive, not in a metaphorical sense, but as a literal, complex, physiological system. This is the core of the Gaia hypothesis, first proposed by scientist James Lovelock and microbiologist Lynn Margulis in the 1970s. They observed that our planet seems to have an uncanny ability to self-regulate, maintaining conditions suitable for life in a way that defies simple chemical and physical explanations. For billions of years, the Earth's temperature, atmospheric composition, and ocean salinity have remained in a remarkably stable, life-friendly range, despite massive external changes like the sun getting 30% hotter. The hypothesis suggests this isn't a coincidence. It's the result of the entire biosphere, all the plants, animals, microbes, and their physical environment, acting as a single integrated superorganism named Gaia. Gaia isn't necessarily a thinking, self-aware being in the human sense, but it does exhibit complex, lifelike behaviors. It has a metabolism, circulating nutrients and energy through its oceans and atmosphere. It has a respiratory system, with forests breathing in carbon dioxide and exhaling oxygen. It maintains homeostasis, using feedback loops to keep its climate from spiraling into the frozen state of Mars or the runaway greenhouse of Venus. From this perspective, humanity isn't the master of the Earth. We are a part of its complex anatomy. We might be like gut bacteria, either a helpful probiotic contributing to the health of the system, or a pathogenic infection that Gaia's immune system will eventually have to deal with through climate change, pandemics, or other regulatory mechanisms. This theory forces us to see the world not as a dead rock we inhabit, but as a living entity we are embedded within. It is a form of planetary consciousness, a vast, slow, non-human intelligence whose thoughts are measured in ice ages and whose heartbeats are the turning of the seasons.
Participatory anthropic principle. Why does the universe exist? The participatory anthropic principle, proposed by the legendary physicist John Archibald Wheeler, offers a mind-shattering answer. It exists because we are here to say it. This is the most radical extension of quantum observation. Wheeler took the idea that observing a particle forces its reality to collapse and applied it to the entire history of the cosmos. He imagined a delayed choice thought experiment where the way we choose to measure a photon now can retroactively determine the path it took billions of years ago. He concluded that the past of the universe is not fixed. It only becomes concrete history when it is observed in the present. In his words, the universe is a self-excited circuit. Through conscious observers, the cosmos looks back at its own origin, and in that act of looking, brings itself into being. This isn't to say we consciously decide what the universe is like. Rather, our existence as information-processing conscious beings requires the universe to have had a history and physical laws that could lead to us. We are the universe's way of knowing itself. Without a witness, a participator, the universe would remain an unrealized cloud of quantum possibilities. It needed an observer to collapse its own wave function and become a tangible reality. This places consciousness at the very center of the cosmic story. We are not a chemical accident on a lonely planet in a pointless universe. We are the necessary final ingredient. We are the universe's co-creators. Every time we study a distant galaxy or a subatomic particle, we are participating in the act of solidifying its reality. We are the pinhole through which the universe looks at itself, and in doing so, transforms from a silent, ghostly maybe into the glorious, complex is.